Okay. Alrighty. So, you guys can see the human design aura type made easy slide, yes?
Hmm.
Great. Because sometimes it likes to be special and we know it. So, first things first, well, you guys already know me. So, like, I cuss. Permission to be me. Can I please have your permission? Um, so invitation for you all is that to look at it through the lens of it is what it is, right? There's no better, there's no worse. It just exists. And it's about learning to play with that energetic that exists and runs through us in the most natural and beneficial way for us. I also want to give you a little bit of my perspective. So, I come from a traditional human design background. There is quantum human design, and now there's a bunch of other offshoots of human design that are kind of coming about. Um, so, I stick with the traditional. So, there may be some different terminology that you may hear. Feel free if you have a question about it to ask me. If it's not traditional, I may not know the answer. I will find out for you if I don't know. Um, and also, like, I've been in my experiment now for a little over 7 years. So there's been lots of deconditioning that has happened. And the concept behind it is kind of like the human body, it takes about 7 years for all the cells in our body to regenerate. So like that's kind of if you're looking to do human design and looking to actually fully decondition and have the biggest amount of success, you're gonna see more of it in 7 years. Like 7 years is gonna be that you just kind of live it. You're not really struggling with it so much. So yeah. So the agenda for today, I'm gonna do a little bit of HD intro. We're looking strictly at the types and the aspects that are directly connected to type today. So we're going to ignore a bunch of the chart. Don't worry about it. Like it's very easy to rabbit hole down it. I know I do it all the time. I did it for years, which is why now I'm doing workshops on this stuff. But um so those things are associated with type is strategy and also themes. And then after that, we're going to talk a little bit about like, kind of how this shows up in real life. Um, a lot of I will introduce you to some of the human design languaging, and then I'm going to just discard it because a lot of it is not very accessible. And the point of this is to make it easy to understand and practical because I want you guys to be able to like start getting into it, start living it, and start playing it because that's the whole point. If you treat human design like a philosophy and stay in your brain about it, you've missed the whole point. You should probably work with something else. So, okay, so human design is actually a channeled system. It was channeled by Ra Uru Hu, and it's a binary system. And it's really in the binary, it's just existence, and it's just either you kind of constantly have the energetic or you don't have consistent access, right? It's not so much that like you never experience anything. It's just whether this is constant experience or like this needs something else to activate for you to experience. It is about differentiation. So right now we're starting at like the very highest level, which is where people are going to be the most similar. And then the further you dive down, it's more and more nuanced. And like you can have a chart that looks nearly identical to someone, and there will be layers deep enough that like you guys are still not going to be the same and you guys are going to differ. And human design really honors that. And like we're all needed and we all have a role to play. And when everyone's playing their role, which is like acting according to their energetic and their activations, like everything works really, really well. A lot of us don't do that, but Um, it is a synthesis of a lot of ancient systems and some more modern systems. So astrology is incorporated, the I Ching, the chakra system, the Kabbalah, which is also the tree of life if you don't know it by the Kabbalah name. And I apologize for misspelling that. I missed a B. And genetics, and then some physics and some quantum mechanics that happen all rolled up into this package. So again, you can rabbit hole for like ever and a day. You can get down to like chemical level of stuff that's being activated and that's like, you know, um, but eventually we might get there. Right now we're just starting really, really top level view. So, and the top level is actually the like most, it's going to be the biggest impact and the easiest to see the difference in. Like when you get to the more nuanced things, it's kind of like, if you go, hey, we have some sunglasses, but now we start like changing the color of the lenses, right? Like you have the sunglasses, it's still doing the job. Like now we're just messing with shit. Same thing. So, the first thing I want to talk about is type, and you'll hear it as type all the time. And do you guys both know your type for human design? Okay, perfect. So what a lot of people don't realize is that like it's actually aura type is the whole term. And I like to focus on that just a little bit because I think it makes it easier when we get to strategy to understand why that strategy might be what it is for each type when you understand how the energy of a person's aura is moving and acting, right? So basically, aura type is just kind of a description for how your energy is moving. There are four. If you dealt with quantum human design, they'll say five. Um, so in traditional human design, it's manifestor, generator, projector, and reflector. And manifesting generator is a subset of a generator type. So they still act and be their aura and their energy is still moving like that of a generator. If you're looking at quantum, they're going to say it's a fifth type and it's somewhere in between manifestor and generator. And literally, if you're interested in like what the quantum human design would say about manifesting generator, just take everything I'm going to tell you about manifestor and generator and jam that shit together. That's what they're going to tell you it is. So when we're talking about a manifestor, and actually, this is one of the words that like human design makes people a little confused. So it is not that like, hey, only manifestors can manifest, right? All types can manifest. We all have that ability. It's a human thing. This is just the languaging that they chose to use, and it makes it a little confusing for people. But that's not, we're not talking about like, hey, the ability to like manifest stuff in our life overall. Okay. But manifestors have a closed and repelling aura. So it's kind of really self-contained and it pushes stuff away. So I want you to think this a little hamster ball here, right? We have all these fun pictures today because I just want you to have the mental image and you'll better understand the strategy. Then we go to generators, right? And both generators and manifesting generators, they have the open and enveloping aura. So I want you to think of it as like a magnet, right? Like everything just comes to us. Everything comes for us. Like it's like, hey, we love you. You may love it back, you may not, but everything's like just kind of coming at you. When you get to a projector, they have a focused and absorbing aura. And I want you to think of it kind of like a needle because these are the people that like their energy goes really, really deep. Okay. If they're not surface level people at all. um, then we get to reflectors, and reflectors have a sampling aura. So this is kind of the like, we got to try it on, right? Like everything's kind of has to be tried on because that's the only way that they're going to know is they have to kind of play in the experience of it first. That said, strategy is directly related to type. So strategy is basically, it's the way of being in life that's going to bring the most flow to your life and the least resistance, right? Um, it's not, some people will confuse this with decision making, and it's not. Your authority is what's going to decide how you make a decision. But this is just kind of like how you, in general, move about the world. And if you can learn to move this way and just exist this way, life gets so much easier. So there are four strategies, each one belonging to a type. So a manifestor strategy is to inform, right? Which kind of makes sense if you think about, hey, they have this energetic that is self-contained but pushes outward. Like if you move, like think about that person moving through the crowd that's like pushing through the crowd, right? Like if that bitch don't say, excuse me, you're gonna be ready to fight. Like we have a problem. Same thing, right? That's part of why it is to inform. Um, and it's also related to their impact because their energy is just very impactful on others. Then we have wait to respond, and that is the generator and manifesting generator um, way strategy. And this whole waiting thing makes people kind of uncomfortable. And you need to understand, like, waiting is not this completely passive, I'm doing nothing process, right? Waiting is an active process. In terms of a generator, since stuff is always coming at you, you're technically always responding to things. So it's really more about hearing your response to the thing. Um, and like it makes sense because we're just like everything's attracted to us, right? So like we just have to like, are we gonna dodge it? Are we gonna catch it and hug it? Like, what are we gonna do with it? Do we need to like karate chop it? Like, what's happening? So for projectors, remember again, these are our needle people. Um, they need to wait for the invitation, right? Which when you think about it and you realize that, hey, they're like really focused and they have this energy that just kind of goes deep and like penetrates, like penetration without permission is not okay. Like we get this. Like, it's a very easy to understand concept when you understand what the energy is. Right? And then with reflectors, we have wait a lunar cycle, again, because they have that sampling aura. So they got to kind of try it on, sit in it, play with it a little bit. Is this right? Is this yummy? I don't know. Like what's happening? And have that experience. And they need a good amount of time to do that. So themes. Themes are basically, they are emotional states and they're experienced either when you're in accordance with your energy or when you're outside of accordance with your energy. And so you'll see this appear in human design in two ways. So there's one that's actually called a theme, but it's called the not self theme. And that's going to be the one when you're out of accordance with your energy. And I like to think of that one as your little check engine light, right? Like, hey, something's wrong. We're not operating properly. Time out. Like, take a pause. Let's readjust. Let's relook at this. And the other one is called your signature. And that's what you experience when you are operating in alignment with your energy, with the way it's moving. So for manifester, the not self theme is anger, and that signature is peace. Generator, that not self theme is frustration, and the signature is going to be satisfaction. For our projector friends, the not self theme is bitterness, and then the signature is going to be success. And reflectors, we have disappointment as the not self theme and surprise as the signature. So I want to talk a little bit about some real life stuff, right? I won't go through for each of the types. So with the manifestors, because their aura is closed and repelling, they're fairly insulated from other people, right? Like other people just don't impact them really. So like whatever you're doing over here ain't got shit to do with them. They're not concerned about it. And because that's their experience, it can be really hard and challenging for them to understand why they need to inform people, right? Because if you move over here, it doesn't impact me at all. However, if they move, it impacts everyone around them, but that's not an experience that they have. So, so it's really important. One of the challenges that can come for a manifester around their strategy is they confuse the need to inform with asking permission. And that's not what you're doing. You're just letting people know, like, hey, I'm about to move this way. And it just gives everybody else a chance to adjust accordingly, however they need to prepare for that impact that's about to happen. You also have with manifestors, they're the only type that actually gets to start things. They're not in any way responding to anything that's in existence, right? Like they're sparking it. They just decide, like it's an internal thing. And so it's really important to get them to inform you, right? Like you telling a manifestor what to do is not going to work. I mean, sometimes you can, but that's when they're not in alignment with themselves, right? So it's their decision and the way that you're going to help them. Even if you were to be like coaching them or working with them in any type of support capacity where like, hey, you're guiding them to some extent, is going to be through helping them understand what it is they want to do. Like, what is that desire that they have? Um, then for generators, um, again, the waiting is a little hard for a generator sometimes initially. um, it can be a little interesting because sometimes generators act like manifestors. That's the way they're most often out of alignment, is they will be behaving as though they're a manifestor and they're trying to respond to something internal to themselves. That response is to something external, right? And external stuff can be like a whole bunch of things, right? Like it could just be someone in passing saying something, and now you have this idea, it's running a mile a minute, and you're really excited about it. Cool. That's you responding. Like, follow that, right? Um, just don't be like in your head and you're just generating stuff out of the blue and be like, oh, I like it. So this is a yes, because that's probably not gonna go not the way you think. Uh, for projectors, a lot of them won't wait for the invitation initially. And then the next struggle becomes what an invitation looks like. And so the and and this statement right here is true for all the types, like the bigger impact on life that a particular thing has, the more important it is for you to be operating in your strategy. Okay, so for projectors, when that comes to the invitation, that means like, if it's something small and minor, it doesn't need to be a really formal invitation. But if it's like, hey, a career opportunity, a life partner, things like that, it needs to be a more formal invitation. So sometimes your invitation as a projector may just look like someone going, oh, like, well, tell me more about that. Like, or what's your thought about that? What's your opinion on that? Right? Versus sometimes it's actually like a really big to do, like, oh my gosh, you're the expert, please come speak for this thing, etc. Um, so that's one of the things, and they're waiting. Whenever a projector is waiting, it's not it's not you not saying anything, right? Like you should still be to some extent like talking about yourself and like being present, because we can't invite you to the party if we don't know that you exist. Like we really can't. So it's just that not going super deep until you get that invitation. So for reflectors, y'all get to play with the moon, which is kind of fun. um, One of the challenges reflectors can sometimes have um, is that these are the people kind of most likely to be perceived as like the wishy-washy people. And that's just because they have that sampling. And when you understand that, like, hey, their process is more experiential and they have to like be in it for a certain amount of time before they can like know if it is or isn't for them, it becomes something completely different. But if you don't know that, sometimes people just think you're wishy-washy, and that's actually your process. There's nothing wrong with you. It's completely correct for you.